hopefully if you built something, hopefully you want it to continue on, and prosper and grow, whether that's with a family member or without a family member.
Today I signed a deal. I just became the new owner of Ring of Honor.
And cultures are cultures, and you have to respect that. Just because we as Americans, this is the way we should do, this is the way our whole world should be like us. We know the way, and any other way is just not the right way.
Or is it just always like, what will make the best show in your eyes? Like, is that
I'm always concerned about what's best for the audience. Always. What does the audience want?
There's been better representation, I think, than ever before. Diversity among the champions and new stars coming in.
Our partners are really happy with what they're getting, and we're really happy to work in those partnerships. And that's about as corporate and honest as I can be there.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Wrestlenomics Radio. I'm Brandon Thurston, broadcasting live and on demand from Buffalo, New York, where it is Sunday, March the 6th, 2022. It is 65 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is Celsius for you international listeners, but it is a pretty nice day. That's roughly, that's like the minimum room temperature that you can handle here in the U.S. before you can start making complaints against your landlord. I'm joined today by a ring announcer, an everyman for the Wrestlenomics world, and so forth and things of that nature. Chris Gullo, hello.
Hello, I'm happy to be here. It's been a very busy weekend. A beautiful day, though, as you said. Like, I took my dog outside. I'm like, wow, this is awesome. But I'm going to see the Batman later today, and then also probably watching Revolution. So stacked today. That's
right. Your blue shirt is the chroma key doesn't know what to do, but yeah, we'll deal with that. There's a dog roaming around in the backyard over here somewhere. I think that's the other neighbor's dog. I'm afraid that one of the neighbor's dogs is in the wrong backyard or something at the moment. That's why I'm staring out the window. We had a wrestling show that we were interacting in person yesterday.
Yes. Yeah,
Another
we were.
Empire State Wrestling show has come and gone.
Yeah, it was a great time. It was ESW Spring Breakdown. 440 plus fans.
440.
Yes.
Reporting the attendance here. I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was that paid? Does that include comps?
I believe that's paid attendance. I don't even know if there is any comps.
Are there any comps on such a show?
I don't think so.
No comps.
But it was a stack show, top to bottom. Great show, great main event with Kevin Blackwood and Ricky Shane Page, and it was a fun night for sure.
Good. I'm trying to fix your chroma key, and all I'm doing is making you change into strange colors. So
I'm sorry. I thought this would be okay on top of the green.
I don't know. I would think it would be. For those listening only in audio, which is most of you. Gullo was wearing a bright blue. Kind of a skyish blue, kind of a Twitter blue colored shirt.
Robin's egg blue.
And a Lego tie.
Yes.
Did Mr. Brickster make that tie?
Yes, he did. Yes.
Okay. And fans of the IWTV universe may be familiar with Mr. Brickster. Anyway. I produced the show. I helped produce the show for Brett, the promoter. Didn't book any of it, but just made things happen, which I think it went well. It was good. Everybody seemed. I didn't have any problems with anybody, but it was fine. There's been a lot of wrestling news and wrestling media this week. I made you listen to many things. Have you done all of your homework? Are you properly prepared for this episode, Chris Gullo?
I have done all my homework, and I am prepared. And yes, a lot of wrestling media was consumed this week. And we'll just talk about the highlights of what you're going to hear today. You're going to hear about the Pat McAfee Vince McMahon interview. You're going to hear about Tony Khan buying Ring of Honor. You're going to hear about WWE and AEW making a deal. We're also going to touch on the interview that you discussed, this week with Chris Harrington. I believe it was Tuesday on the Wrestlenomics feed.
Yes.
So, and much more.
Yes,
This is a
Tuesday.
jam-packed Wrestlenomics.
Tuesday, I talked to Mookie. Wednesday, there was a Tony Khan conference media call. Thursday was the Vince and Pat interview. So you listened to the Vince and Pat McAfee interview, right?
Yes.
I hope you took away from that. The way that Pat treated Vince in that interview is how I want you to treat me here on this program from now on.
Brandon Thurston, a legend, an absolute. Brandon, you adversity. You grew up in a trailer, and look at you now. You're the Wrestlenomics guy. Look at how do you do it, man? How do you become so awesome?
I grew up in the suburbs, and here I am now. Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess we'll start with Vince and Pat. I have a few clips that we're gonna play from this that we'll deal with directly. This was Vince's first interview. At some point, Pat McAfee hyped it as the first Vince interview in 15 years. That's not quite the case. First interview since 2014, December 2014, when he was interviewed by Steve Austin on the W Network and for Steve Austin's podcast, which I think Vince came off very poorly, and I think it was a disaster for them, both in terms of their fan relations and in terms of their talent relations, saying things like, so Cesaro, whose contract reportedly has recently expired, maybe just doesn't have it. Maybe it's because he's Swiss, and so forth. And he said things like this. In fact,
It's millennials. They're not as ambitious, quite frankly.
yeah, I didn't even plan to do that, but I do have that on our soundboard, just ready to go at any time. So yeah, that was an interview where I think he came off, as some people suspected, quite out of touch. That was years ago, though. This was a very different interview. I mean, you have interviewers in both cases that you can see Vince being comfortable with for perhaps different reasons, but we have Pat McAfee interviewing, one of his employers, so you can see why that would be a friendly interview. Maybe we'll talk about another friendly interview between me and Mookie later, though. But yeah, any thoughts or takeaways from this Gullo before we go into specifics?
And I've seen many people have kind of same opinion that I'm gonna have, and I've seen you comment on a few others, wrestling journalists, about that. Pat did a great job at making Vince be human-like, kind of break this robot facade and just work, and really come out of his comfort zone. It seems a little bit, but not in the way probably we wanted to hear. I obviously some parts like the releases, I listened to the fans, and that could be heavily debated that the fans wanted people like Keith Lee and Killer Cross and others released. And it got accomplished what WWE wanted accomplished. It pumped up WrestleMania. It pumped up the Undertaker Hall of Fame announcement. It got them mainstream media press that they knew was going to be friendly. I mean, Pat McAfee is a big deal. It might be the top sports podcast now. So,
yeah,
that's one thing you
he
got to
seems
remember.
very popular. Thoughts and feelings on listening to Pat McAfee be Pat McAfee for about an hour and a half?
I've watched Pat McAfee before, and obviously I've seen him on SmackDown, but that energy was a whole nother level. I'm like, whoa, this guy doesn't stop. And he's drinking liquid death water. I'm like, where are the monsters or the rains? I could not believe how just a constant, yeah. I was like, what? Yeah. Hey, man, if that's how Pat McAfee rolls, I mean, I'm a high energy person too, but I was like, whoa.
Someone said it was, it's you're hanging out with some frat boys. There's not a lot of substance in this interview. There's a lot of, obviously this was a huge thing for wrestling media to react to. The way the wrestling media reacted to it has been reacted to. There's not a lot of news or substance out of this. There's a lot of anecdotes and stories. It's a kind of a puff piece for Vince. Pat Pat McAfee's show had the audacity to put in their video title, Vince talks about AEW in Saudi Arabia. Pat did say AEW. He brought it up in terms of competition. He didn't specifically ask him, like, how do you feel about AEW and this new company? But he did sort of bring it up, and Vince did not go down that road in his response. The nearest to newsworthy thing here is what he said about family, which was still kind of vague. But let's just listen to that clip now. Actually, on video, we'll see it as well.
No, I don't think about it a lot.
He's being asked about succession.
If you built something, hopefully you want it to continue on, and prosper and grow, whether that's with a family member or without a family member. Because my view is the business is best for everybody, and whether you're a part of it or you're not a part of it. And you have to treat it as such. You have to be objective, and look at family members, whoever it is, just like you would other employees. And quite frankly, I probably have expected more, out of my family members, which is probably not the right thing either. but we really
that's going to be a big deal right there, what you just said. You know that, though, absolutely.
But nonetheless, it's like you have to do the right thing for the business. So if this person is not working out, then they shouldn't be a part of the company.
Who's he talking about there? This person isn't working out.
I mean, we would assume Shane McMahon.
Shane would be the likeliest person you would think you would have in mind, especially considering recent events where he's reportedly sent home after rubbing a lot of people the wrong way after Royal Rumble. Triple H, though, as well, seems to be applicable to that.
Yeah.
I wonder I would be pissed if I was Stephanie listening to that. What have I done wrong? No. There's that's the closest we got to the Palace intrigue. And I guess it leaves that doesn't sound like somebody who's absolutely certain he's going to hand this business on to a family member. And this is good for your talking point. Is W going to sell? Then maybe Vince is open to selling and getting that. I think as long as he's alive, though, he's going to run this company. But I think I hesitate to try to unpack this because it's such a vague comment. I think he's open to a future where the company is owned by somebody else. But I still stand by, I think as long as he's alive, he's going to want to be in control of it. Anything to add there?
No. One thing too, the succession, like when McAfee brought it up, because I know you probably won't ever watch it. Like at least it's just the consensus is he just doesn't watch anything. But he actually did address Vince addressed some people think I'm not hip and this and that and all that. But I did enjoy McAfee going, you probably never seen this or probably never will watch it, but
but yeah, I mean, that sort of just it confirmed things that we felt, oh yeah, he's not on the greatest professional terms with Shane. Who knows if he's got Paul Levesque in mind? And does Stephanie actually run this company someday? I don't know, but we got some sort of vague comment to that effect. Saudi Arabia came up as, man, well, he's just doing great work in Saudi Arabia. Let's listen to the excerpt.
For instance, you doing a show in Saudi Arabia, okay? This was before you were the first person I think that went over there and almost like offered, hey, let's go ahead and maybe try to bring the world together a little bit. Was that because you heard there were big fans? And when you go into a meeting like that, what the fuck your 8-foot trailer is where you grew up at. Now you're doing meetings with royalty in Saudi Arabia. Like, how do you even prepare for that? What do you expect for that? And since that relationship has started, have you seen like their country develop more and maybe get a little bit more lenient, which is good for the entire world, I think, right?
Well, Saudis are no different than any other people. WB fans all over the world. So it doesn't
how'd you
matter.
know? They were just watching on the internet, or how'd you find out that it was?
Actually, well, I've known for years. We've had a presence over there for years. And Saudi, everywhere, there was no place on the globe that we don't have a presence. So Saudi fans are, really, really enthusiastic, like they are everywhere else. So it was an opportunity to play before the audience. Like no other than people love Western culture all over the world. They don't love our government, but they love Western culture.
Nobody loves it.
And our form of entertainment with WB kind of fits into everything. It's larger than life. It's like, everything imaginable that you could ever, like, oh my God, the spectacle of it, So it fits in everywhere. And we translate it in, 40 languages or something like that. But even if there's just English, you get it, you understand. So we've always been, popular everywhere. Saudi is no different. And again, people are people. It's, and cultures are cultures, and you have to respect that. Just because we as Americans, this is the way we should do, this is the way our whole world should be like us. We know the way, and any other way is just not the right way. Come on, culture's been around thousands of years.
Oh, well, hey.
Long before us.
Yeah, it depends which book you read. There's millions of years potentially, but like that's a very real thing. And situations are situational is something I say all the time because it's very real.
So there you go. Vince, those are Vince's comments on Saudi Arabia. And I think he brings up some really interesting points there. Cultures are cultures. People are people. And as Pat added, situations are situations. So it really puts to bed all of the criticisms that people like you, Chris Gullo, have been raising time after time after time about Saudi Arabia being like this bad thing that they're doing when they're actually bringing the world together. And it has nothing to do with how much money the Saudi government is giving them. Yeah, I mean, they're giving them more money than all of the money that they've ever drawn from selling every ticket to every WrestleMania adjusted for inflation, and they're making more money than AEW will make in its entire 4-year deal with Warner Media, and they're making more money from Saudi Arabia. They already have then the entire market capital of Bushi Road, and they've made more money from Saudi Arabia from every dollar that New Japan has drawn since Okada's big push. So, cultures are cultures, people are people. And it's got nothing to do with the money, right? It's all about WWE's moral beliefs.
Well, cultural relativism, which you just had up a little bit there, which we can kind of circle back to, but it is the idea that a person's beliefs and practices should be understood based on that person's own culture. Proponents of cultural relativism also tend to argue that the norms and values of one culture should not be valued using the other norms of value of another.
Mm-hmm. So that stands scrutiny. Does that apply fully to this situation without caveat? It's really just people not being tolerant and accepting of the Saudi Arabia culture. Isn't that right?
But here's the thing, like, culture is music, it's art, it's food, it's religion. Culture is not human rights. Like, you can't have different human rights because your culture, you know what I mean? Like, we're not going to allow women to vote because our culture, like, no, it's not acceptable. Human rights isn't a culture thing. Human rights should be across the board, freedom for everybody, freedom to beliefs, freedom to vote, freedom to drive, freedom to work. Okay. And I think that's what he doesn't understand the argument is.
Right. But all that money they're making, you have to respect that, right? I mean, as many people said in response to this, you like Vince or hate him, you have to respect him. Isn't that true? You have to respect Vince. You have to respect him. You have no choice about that matter, correct? You have to respect him. You have to respect Vince. But what about, like, if, say, you want to kill a journalist because he's been saying critical things about you, isn't that a part of culture, other people's culture, that we should accept?
And that's where, and I know where you're going to kind of tie this into, but yeah, if we remember from the Atlantic,
this is a recent article in the Atlantic profile on Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the de facto leader of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, and I will kind of read the expert here. The Crown Prince defended himself in part by asserting that the Khashoggi was not important enough to kill.
This is Jamal Khashoggi, who's the journalist who was murdered by Saudi agents.
Never read a Khashoggi article in my life. He said, to our astonishment, added that if he were to send a kill squad, he'd choose a more valuable target and more competent assassins. If that's the way we did things, murdering authors of critical op-eds, Khashoggi wouldn't even be among the top 1,000 people on the list. If you're going to go for another operation like that for another person, it's got to be professional, and it's got to be one of the top 1,000. Apparently, he had a hypothetical hit list ready to go. Nevertheless, he maintained that Khashoggi killing was a huge mistake. So, he wasn't a top 1,000. Like, why do you have a top 1,000?
Do you remember the O.J. Simpson book? If I Did It, this is how it would be.
Yes. If I did it, yes.
So, the CIA believes that MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, ordered the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. And things like this, among other things, including women's rights, gay rights, or lack thereof in Saudi Arabia. And the thing that W needs you to forget or not know or not care about, the thing that the Saudi government and MBS need you to not know, not care about, is that it's the government that's funding this. This is not just, as Pat McAfee makes it sound, that, we're just going over there and bringing the world together. They're going over there to be paid by the Saudi government the equivalent of 3 WrestleManias in ticket sales. Every time. They're going to go there twice in 2022. They already went there once. They'll make $100 million in revenue. That's 6 WrestleManias in ticket sales. So it's incredibly huge money, and it's not from the fans there. Nobody's saying anything about Saudi people, average citizens here. We're talking about the government that imposes human rights violations both on its people and on in situations like in the blockade of humanitarian aid in Yemen, and went out of their way to lure a journalist who was critical of their government to a Saudi consulate in Turkey so he could be killed and dismembered. That's what's happening, and Pat McAfee's not going to bring that up to his boss. Now WB will, when there's not a lot of money involved, they will, as they did earlier this week, announce that they're terminating their partnership, their media partnership and their W network distribution in Russia. As everybody's doing it, which is probably the right thing to do to pressure the Russian government, which is invading Ukraine. But this deal that they go ahead and read this press release, please.
Yeah, so WWE released the following statement. WWE has terminated its partnership with Russian broadcaster Mach and shut down WWE Network in Russia effective immediately. This move eliminates a cross in Russia to any WWE program, including the company's weekly Raw, SmackDown, and NXT shows, its on-demand library, and all its premium live events, including WrestleMania 38.
And here we see WWE have some apparent moral consideration. So they're probably giving up about $50 million like they are in the case of their Saudi Arabia deal. How much do you think this deal is worth? $50 million, $100 million? What do you think?
This is probably maybe $1 million deal.
Yeah,
probably less.
Probably less than that. I would guess. So not a lot of financial sacrifice here to do the thing that many companies are doing to sort of sanction and pressure the Russian government. Yes. And I think what we see as I was thinking about this interview and re-listening to parts of it, getting these clips together last night, it sort of underlines the tension between getting along well with people and establishing these relationships and this almost toxic positivity that Pat McAfee brings to this interview. How much he's just amazed by Vince, and how much you have to respect Vince, even if he's doing business with the Saudis who are doing terrible things and violating human rights. Even if he's got his wrestlers misclassified as independent contractors when they should be employees, which, by the way, AEW probably does too. And even if he is accused of sexual assault a couple of times, and there's a lot of things you can criticize him about, but you have to respect him. But if you do show appreciation and awe of Vince McMahon, maybe it helps your connections, it helps your relationships, especially if you want to get ahead and say the wrestling industry or some sort of industry that's related to the wrestling industry. You gotta stay positive. You gotta get those opportunities. Whether those opportunities are emotional, it feels good to have your ego validated because these other people are willing to talk to you and give you acceptance. Maybe there's financial opportunity to make if you get a job with WWE or something like that, or AEW for that matter, versus being critical of an industry, being what could attempted to be dismissed as being negative. You're so negative, Gullo. Why do you have to bring up these inconvenient truths? Stop being so negative.
If I could be negative again, one thing you keep bringing up is the respect thing, right? And Vince touched on respect, and the one thing I want from my roster, my talent is respect and all that. And he sees it as respect, but I think what we've heard from people's previous experiences, it's more fear of losing your job, losing a push, like I can't tell him about being injured, I can't, I guess I'll do this even though I don't want to do this, but I know it's gonna, kill any momentum. Like I think he sees it as respect, but I think a lot of people probably see it as fear of like losing their job, like being that whole just don't say anything, go without the corporate line.
I hesitate to talk about wrestling media because at least I am wrestling media at this point. Are you wrestling media, Gullo?
Yeah, I'm wrestling media.
Why are you wrestling media?
I would say, well, first off, I co-host this show with you. Yeah. I have fans on both sides saying things to me like I'm this shill or that shill. I do another podcast about independent wrestling history. I'd say I'm wrestling media.
Yes. And I guess because we did the interview with Mookie, I can see how one might say that we're sitting here and criticizing this Vince interview when I just did an interview with Chris Harrington, who's an AEW senior vice president, in which he promoted the AEW pay-per-view, which is tonight. And he was quite guarded about many things in that interview. Yeah, I think I would rather criticize things. I care a lot about the wrestling industry, and I think it needs to be criticized. The wrestling industry, probably more than most industries, needs to be criticized, and it needs some negativity thrown at it to raise awareness and to educate the audience, to educate people who can pressure the wrestling industry to improve in a lot of ways, whether that's just creatively, whether that's in terms of talent relations, whether that's in terms of workers being treated like employees rather than independent contractors when, according to a multi-factor test for the IRS, they probably should be treated as employees.
I think it just goes to the fan base. I mean, with wrestling, you have a large community that wants to know what happens backstage, wants to know about business dealings, wants to know, what changes can be made. I mean, we hear Wrestlenomics get a great audience. People that really want to know the business side of things. Where, like, let's just be very frank here. WWE is not the only corporation that we can call out things that might be questionable. Like, corporations do it every single day. I mean, some corporations are just purposely they're refusing to go green and try to have any type of method to save the planet from global warming and stuff like that. Like
vegan, like a true
and doing business in countries that are questionable and stuff like that. Like, so yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to there's a fan base in wrestling that really wants to know, and that's why wrestling media provides that outlet. Yeah, I mean, some people take too negative of a spin. Some people take way too positive of a spin too. I feel like we try to be fair, and I know that sometimes it comes off like we're so anti WWE. Sometimes, like I'll give WWE credit when it's due. You know, it's been more misses and hits in my personal opinion lately.
And I have an opinion about that, and I say it just about every week. So we'll hold off and let's turn now to Vince's comments on talent releases and the audience. Here's the clip.
So whenever you think about the future, because a lot of people on the internet, they say with some of the moves that get made. Now listen, I was in the NFL where I have lunch with a dude. Okay, I go into my meeting. I never see that guy again. That guy was cut. He's gone. This is the NFL. There's only a certain amount of spots. With you, whatever you have to make those decisions to move forward, people always assume that you just have no heart and you do not care at all about any of these people. Then there's podcasts that happen. Each one of those decisions that you make, whether it's to release somebody or, by the way, push somebody or keep somebody, how much weight, are any of those decisions more difficult than others, or is it just always what will make the best show in your eyes?
I'm always concerned about what's best for the audience. Always. What does the audience want? And if you have dead weight around you, if you had situations whereby someone's not cutting it, and you have an opportunity for someone else to come in, it's okay, that's probably the best thing. It was one of the reasons why, with Hogan and a lot of those guys who left me at one time, and why I brought him back. It's I'll never bring that son of a bitch back again as long as I live. It's when you say stuff like that, you're really hurting yourself because you're not thinking about your audience. You're not thinking about your product. And it's not about you and your ego. It's yeah, okay, maybe I really felt that way, maybe I didn't, but nonetheless, it doesn't matter. What's the best thing for business? If the audience wants Hulk Hogan back, you bring him back if he has value that way.
There you go. I see we have a couple super chats. We will address those before we're done here today. So Vince also says elsewhere in this interview that investors, the company going public has helped him to make decisions more easily and to not have as much of a heart. So yeah, the notion that Vince is always thinking about the audience is I don't doubt his belief that that's what he's doing. I believe that he believes that that's what he does, but I don't think he separates the audience, what the audience wants from what he wants, or he takes certain reactions from the W audience to only be a vocal minority who don't need to be taken seriously.
Do you think, let me give you a scenario. Let's say Nick Khan, whoever, says, hey, we should probably release so many talents. And then Vince just goes to justify it in his head to the audience. Well, the less talent, the more they can focus on talent and really get invested. Do you think that's kind of how he processes it? Like something comes to him and then he justifies it in his head, why it's a good move for the fans?
You're saying his justification for releasing talent is so if we have fewer wrestlers, then more wrestlers will be able to get over because we'll have to split up the time. We won't have to split up the time, share the time among them as much. No, I don't think that's part of the thought process. Look at their TV. They use for as large a roster as they have had, and they still have a pretty large roster. They use remarkably few wrestlers relative to the size of their roster on their main roster shows. They don't use the depth that they have. I guess that could be a reason. Who knows what the mental gymnastics are that happen. But I don't see that as a good reason though. At the bit where it's not something that's happening that they're truly doing.
All right, so yeah, if we want to move on, or I think you just kind of want to relate this to the Stone Cold.
He came off much better.
It was definitely different.
He came off much better in this interview with Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee was much nicer to him. Steve pressed him on some things, and I think Steve Austin was really coming from a place, even in 2014, of not being satisfied with the TV product, not seeing certain people who he apparently was a fan of Cesaro and was apparently talking with them, and he wanted to see him become more successful in WWE, and he was questioning Vince on that. Pat was not questioning Vince on the state of WWE in any way other than to support him and praise him and love him. I'm sure Steve Austin has a lot of respect for Vince McMahon too, for a lot of reasons. But Steve Austin was coming from more of a critical point of view, and Vince came off more poorly in that interview in 2014. This one was more of a puff piece, and you can certainly look at the reaction. I even, I scrolled through the YouTube comments on this interview, and I could not find a single negative comment on this, on the YouTube comments. At least, the other night when I was looking at it, people referring to Vince is like my second father. So people love Vince for some reason.
What were some things that maybe could have been asked that you were like to be asked? Like, knowing that Pat McAfee's not going to ask him certain questions, but like I personally would have liked to have a question about Nick Khan, like the dynamic.
I mean, if he was going to be a guest on Wrestlenomics, it'd be a very different kind of interview. I mean, it would be first of all, if Pat McAfee was an independent journalist, is it his job to ask things about business related, like it would be for us, and that would be my mindset. But I would want to know. First, I would want to know, like, what is a typical day like for Vince McMahon? It sounds like he does a lot of work on the plane. What does he actually do? I'm sure he does a lot, and he works as much as possible. I believe he's sincere in the fact that he loves this and he does it all the time. But like, what does he do on a typical day, and how involved truly is he in creative? What's that meeting process like? I don't think he's writing the TV, as we discussed a few weeks ago. I don't think he's like meticulously writing the TV with the writers. He approves everything, and I think he strikes out the vision for them. But I don't think he's deeply involved in the writing process, because we hear about him ripping the script up and telling everybody to rewrite everything on a few hours' notice. There's that. I think he could have been followed up on Succession, not the TV series. When's he gonna watch it? But do you see Stephanie running this company someday? What happened with Shane? What happened with Triple H and NXT? Why was it the right time to rebrand NXT? What's your relationship been like with Nick Khan? You seem to be really happy with him, and how has he changed what WWE has become in the last 2 years? Are you open to selling the company? We could go on.
All right. So we will move on from one company to another that acquired another company. Well, maybe, but at least the individual. Tony Khan himself has bought Ring of Honor. From what we understand, AEW has not purchased Ring of Honor. Tony Khan has bought Ring of Honor, as he announced on Dynamite on Wednesday.
So here's a clip from Dynamite on Wednesday.
At the very beginning, well, it was about 17 years before that, another wrestling company started. A wrestling company known as ROH. Ring of Honor. And I've been a fan of Ring of Honor for a long time, a huge fan. So you can imagine I'm very excited, because today I signed a deal. I just became the new owner of Ring of Honor. Shane's not here. There's no Shane. It's me.
So there you go. You want to go ahead and read the relevant portion of the press release?
Yeah. So in the press release, this deal adds thousands of content to our rapidly growing library and creates new opportunities to expand our footprint on a national and global scale, while having the potential to produce new content under the Ring of Honor banner. I will immediately begin exploring opportunities to make Ring of Honor's video library available to fans who have the opportunity to witness the beginnings of the careers of some of AEW's biggest stars.
So, and then the last sentence of the press release.
Okay, yeah. So the last sentence of the press release here is The acquisition will be completed through an entity that is wholly owned by Tony Khan. Further details about the extent of the acquisition will be announced in the coming weeks.
Okay, so it sounds like, first of all, it's definitely the case that this is not AEW LLC. It's not All Elite Wrestling LLC that is acquired or is going to acquire Ring of Honor. It's some other corporation that Tony Khan owns. There's a pay-per-view tonight for AEW. There will be a media scrum, which will only be in person. I asked if there will be a call-in conference call media scrum. I was told there will not be. So only media who are there in person in Orlando. We are in Buffalo tonight. I hope media later tonight asks Tony about at least two things, and that is why are you buying this as a separate, wholly owned entity? What's the reasoning behind that? And how has this pay-per-view sold? Because they will know as they stand there. Tony will know as he stands there. He will have an early impression of what the pay-per-view sales are like. I would like to hear that from AEW rather than from me or from Dave Meltzer later about what the pay-per-view sales were. So why does Tony own this? I'm not sure. Maybe I'm not. I've heard some reasons, some speculation, but it doesn't come to mind. I guess who owns AEW? We don't. I mean, we know the Khan family owns it. I think Shad, maybe Tony, technically owns it. I'm curious if Warner Media owns part of it, and that's why we've only seen AEW work with Warner Media in the U.S. But yeah, there must be some reason, and there's some interesting things when it comes to AEW's business, like in terms of their finances. When I talked to Mookie the other day, I tried to ask him about, the growth of the employees. He did say that there were some employees, at least at first, who were both Jaguars employees and AEW employees. I didn't get an impression from him how much of that is still the case. When it stands out to me that when I look at the analytics for Wrestlenomics.com, one of the most, among others, one of the more viewed pages is this blog post I did at one point about the title is "How Profitable is AEW," which must be something that people are Googling and finding a lot. The financial state of AEW, we know Tony said to Forbes several months ago that according to him, it would have been profitable if not for eight figure, which means at least $10 million, an 8-figure investment that he's made in gaming. Is that with his gaming partners? Not clear. But according to him, AEW would be profitable if not for that at least $10 million investment into gaming. So is that really an AEW investment? It sounds like it is. AEW is a private company. They're not a public company. They don't do public filings, at least not at this point. So I don't know. It's just not clear to me, how much of this business is mixed in with the Jaguars or mixed in with other entities that the Khan family owns or is associated with. Yeah, and it doesn't help that there's a lot of times where Tony will use I and AEW interchangeably. So, but yeah, this is definitely being owned by a different company. What's possible here? AEW might end up using the Ring of Honor brand as developmental. Who knows? Maybe one of these AEW Dark shows becomes a Ring of Honor show instead. Clearly, he's a fan of Ring of Honor and has been for a number of years. The library makes AEW a little more attractive as a streaming product. It's not like Ring of Honor has this massive appeal. But it grows their library. They're adding to it all the time, right? But it's a relatively small library, say, compared to WWE, which has multiple decades of its own self-produced content, as well as all the other content libraries that they've acquired, which doesn't leave much left if you're trying to acquire additional wrestling libraries, and Ring of Honor is one of them. So that makes them a little bit more attractive. We had, tweets from Andrew Zarian in the lead up to this announcement, speculating or maybe reporting that he had heard that he talked to people who believed that AEW was about to announce a streaming deal with HBO Max. That was obviously not the case. Who knows if that's still in the works? HBO Max seems like a likely destination just because it's a Warner Media owned property. And HBO Max announced earlier this week that they've made a deal with US Soccer, which will be the first time that there will be live sports on HBO Max, which opens the door to speculation, at least, that maybe they would put wrestling. Would they put AEW on to HBO Max? I brought this up with Mookie. He didn't announce a deal. Why don't you tell us about what Lavi tweeted earlier this week?
Yeah, and I just kind of want to circle back to some of the thoughts I have.
Okay.
But Lavi Marlin, our good buddy, he said that while Women in Wrestling announced it is coming to Sinclair in the fall, prior to the Ring of Honor reimagining announcement, was a clear hint that Ring of Honor was done. Sinclair affiliates do not need or likely want 2 hours of must-run pro wrestling content.
Okay, I'm looking at the action in the chat, which looks exciting for you.
Yeah, that's why if I've looked like I'm not looking at you.
Anyway,
I did my first timeout.
It's because you're so negative about WB, and now you're censoring people. First Joe Rogan and now this. So what Lavi points out there, and it was really surprising to me when I was looking at my podcast feed on Wednesday evening before Dynamite went to air. I looked at my podcast feed and I had a new upload of the Business of the Business podcast, which is hosted by Lavi Margolin and John Paz. And the title of their newest episode, which I guess they had recorded that day earlier on Wednesday, was AEW buys Ring of Honor, or Ring of Honor sells to AEW. And I haven't listened to the episode yet. But I asked him, did you know? And he said that they were just speculating. But what Lavi points out here is that, it certainly sounds, based on what they were doing with WOW, that they weren't going to put out an additional hour of pro wrestling content for all of their Sinclair affiliates to run. That sounds like a signal that, well, maybe they're not going to be expecting new Ring of Honor episodes to be on television. So another point here is, there's probably people out there speculating about how Tony Khan's going to have another TV show. It doesn't sound like it's not as if there's going to be this continuing relationship between Sinclair and the Ring of Honor entity. So it's for Tony to do whatever he's going to do with it, and it's not going to include Sinclair. But he does. But he does mention that it's for him to. What does it say here? Well, having the potential to produce new content under the ROH banner. So I would think we have not seen the last Ring of Honor show. We should probably invent a new acronym here. Remember, WWECW. There's no common initial though between AEW and ROH, is there? But AEW ROH. I would imagine there will be another Ring of Honor show under the supervision of Tony Khan in the future.
Well, that's what I was going to, that's the kind of point I want to make. I think when you're discussing a streaming rights deal with like HBO Max or wherever it may be, the way you can kind of push that is okay, we have this library. Of course, you can get the AEW library. Now we have the All In, the show that started it all possible. But I think the biggest thing is that, hey, we will also get you a weekly Ring of Honor program that is exclusive to your streaming service. And because I don't know if
Dark going to watch it. I mean, I could say that 205 Live is this exclusive property. Nobody gives a damn about 205 Live. I mean, it's not even whatever NXT up. Whatever.
But if we were to believe
Level Up,
what MLW claims that they had these deals like in place, Ring of Honor to me is a more better acquisition than MLW, just based on history.
It's Ring of Honor is a better acquisition than MLW in what way?
Just as far as history and I think popularity, and
because of the length of the history and the size, the hours of the library.
But I also think the popularity, the stars that have came through the company, and I would imagine if you were a cable network and both those properties came to you, let's just say it's Ring of Honor before being sold and said, we want a TV deal, MLW, they might go towards Ring of Honor, having the stars that have been there and the history that they have and the base that they've built.
Maybe. I think if we were talking about an independent Ring of Honor and an independent MLW, I don't know if there's a huge there's a difference in terms of the history and the number of hours of content that you would have to provide for sure. The profile I don't see as very different to a media executive who's not going to be that well acquainted with wrestling. I think relationships would be much larger, and trust of the people that you're dealing with would be a much bigger deal than either of those brands that have pretty low profiles. Yeah, I think streaming is still the biggest financial opportunity for AEW. They're still putting their pay-per-views exclusively on pay-per-view, as they are tonight. There's maybe a deal to make. I mean, certainly if somebody wants to offer enough money, there's a deal to make. But the best way to monetize the library, and you probably are going to have to bundle in the pay-per-views to make that happen, is not direct to consumer, especially as I think we get further down into the funnel of hardcore fandom here. Whatever money that AEW might be able to extract from a fan base, I don't think it's going to be huge in terms of like how many subscribers do you think Honor Club had as of this week?
I mean, I would say it was probably like 20,000, maybe
less. Yeah, I would say it's in certainly under 100,000, probably under 50,000. I wouldn't be surprised if it's under 25,000. I wouldn't even be shocked if it's under 10,000. So not a lot. What could AEW do though? Especially if we think about a worldwide basis. What's AEW Plus? How many AEW Plus subscribers do you think there are? Probably tens of thousands. I don't know if it's 100,000. So you think about like what did New Japan has peaked globally at 100,000. So AEW could do more than 100,000 direct-to-consumer subscribers. Certainly if New Japan can, they can. And New Japan's at a far weaker state globally now than they were a few years ago. And I think AEW is stronger than on a global level than New Japan has ever been. So they could, that tells me that at the right price point that they could do over 100,000 subscribers globally, maybe a couple 100,000. And you can do the math. You can multiply that by, say, a $10 price point, across 12 months, and you can get a number, which would be, I don't know. Let's do that real quick. So if they had, let's say, 200,000 worldwide subs, and let's just for ease, let's say they're all $10 a month over 12 months, they can make $24 million in that scenario with their direct-to-consumer service. $24 a month. How much is WWE paying, or how much is Peacock paying? How much is Peacock paying WWE for the network rights and the pay-per-view rights?
That's 250. I always get it confused with the NBC Universal deal. Yeah.
Average annual value, $200 million a year. AEW's not going to get that much, but they can get a fraction of that. Probably more than $24 million a year. Maybe they could work out a deal with somebody like HBO Max, or who knows what's going to happen with Discovery Plus. We'll get to what's going on with Discovery in a moment. But the best way, finally getting to the point here, the best way to monetize this, you can do it direct to consumer if that's your only option. But if you can find a big media company, big media companies are big, and they have a lot of money. They have a lot more money than the AEWs of the world, even the WWEs of the world. NBC Universal is owned by Comcast. I think they're like a $200 billion market capital company. WWE's a $4 billion market capital company. So AEW is something way less than that. In terms of what can they afford? Yes, the Khans are billionaires, but they are still operating under certain financial parameters and limits, right? The point is, these big media companies, especially those who have been deeply invested in traditional TV for decades, which is declining, still very profitable, but declining, they have to hedge against that decline by investing in streaming, and that's what we see, right? HBO, we see CBS becoming Paramount Plus. We see NBC involved in Peacock. We see ABC involved in Disney, ESPN Plus, etc. So they're these way bigger companies that can afford to overpay you now for the sake of the investment in having a successful streaming platform, maybe, hopefully, that replaces the profits that are diminishing and are going to diminish from traditional TV, which is far more than you're going to be able to extract if you get a good deal, far more than you're going to be able to extract direct to consumer. And that's the example of W and Peacock. $200 million a year from NBC Universal to put that stuff on Peacock just for the US. They were making globally $180 million. About 70% of that was US. So, they're making a lot more money that way by going to a business partner rather than going direct to consumer. That's all guaranteed. You don't have to worry about being that popular, at least in the short term. You're not being it's low risk. You can do better financial planning that way because you have a much better idea. Maybe there's some fluctuation in terms of ad revenue there in the Peacock deal, but you have a much better idea with a lot more certainty about how much money you're going to have in the years to come. So, yeah.
Could we see growth of more IP content now from AEW as far as maybe like documentaries, in the aspect of maybe doing a Bryan Danielson documentary, because now you have all this Ring of Honor footage?
I doubt it.
Yeah. I
doubt it because
you know what I mean? Like, they have now more.
Every impression I get from this company is that they don't want to spend money and they want to be very lean. I mean, obviously, I can hear the alarm bells going off. Oh my God, they're spending so much on talent. They are. But from a production standpoint, I think they don't want to spend a lot on doing extra production. There was one Puppy Bowl. There wasn't not Puppy Bowl. One Puppy Battle Royal. There wasn't another one. I think until AEW signs a new TV deal and is actually a sustainable company financially, you will not see deeper investment in content like that unless that's part of an agreement with a media partner that's going to more than pay for the cost of that content.
And that's kind of more what I was thinking. Like, if they do make a deal with like a streaming service, that they would do what WWE does in the aspect of documentaries and maybe like round tables and whatnot like that.
But do they have a potential business partner that's ready to just spend lavishly on content like AEW content?
Yeah, this is actually from Variety. Discovery CEO David Zaslav promises that the company is not in a race to win the spending wars on content when it closes a deal to acquire AT&T's Warner Media and become Warner Brothers Discovery. We're going to spend more on content, but you're not going to see us come in and go, all right, we're going to spend $5 billion more. Zaslav said during an investor call Thursday to discuss company's Q4 earnings results, we're going to be measured, we're going to be smart, and we're going to be careful. As Variety reported Wednesday, insiders say AT&T and Discovery are preparing to close the $43 billion transaction in mid-April through the public line from both companies and is still at some point in the second quarter. Zaslav says the new company, which will run both Discovery's current major streamer Discovery Plus and Warner Media's HBO Max, will be looking to monetize our IP to grow the value of the overall company. Just real quick before you get into Brandon, it seems like they're going to keep it seems like the plan is to keep two different streaming services. So yes, he's saying he doesn't want to race for content, but you're also operating two streaming services in a crowded market.
Sure. I mean, so is Disney. I mean, Disney has Disney Plus, Disney has ESPN Plus, and they're maybe going to become the whole owners of Hulu, the majority owners of Hulu now, right? Disney has, you could say, three. Yeah. So. And there's probably others that have more than one in the universe, but this is Zaz, as those of us who are hip to media call him Zaz. We know that Warner Media has been acquired, will no longer be a part of AT&T. Looks like that deal has passed antitrust scrutiny. It sounds like. I think there was a Washington Post article earlier this week. Warner Media will no longer be part of AT&T, as it has been, and will become merged with Discovery. David Zaslav is the CEO of Discovery. No longer will, what's his name? Who's the Warner Media CEO? Look that up real quick. His name is escaping me.
Let's see here.
Kylar, Jason Kylar. No longer will Jason Kylar be the CEO of Warner Brothers. He will be cast off to future endeavors, and David Zaslav will oversee all of it. So what he's saying here is we're gonna have spending discipline here. We're not gonna spend a ton of money on willy-nilly on all this content. And this was on their most recent earnings call for Discovery. This is being criticized as like, this is an old world traditional TV way of viewing things, in that you need to have many hits, and that's what controls churn. What is churn, Chris Gullo? Churn is a fancy media word for...
I don't know if you've ever told me that before.
It's a way that you make butter. You churn it.
Yes,
you
you're churning it. Yeah, I mean, you're constantly, I would imagine you're constantly moving.
Churn is just a fancy, it's a euphemism. It really is, because we don't want to say canceled their subscription. It's canceling your subscription. Have you canceled any of your streaming subscriptions recently?
No, probably not recently. No.
Well, that doesn't help me then.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of the last time, like, I did cancel it. Like, I've canceled non-TV subscription services probably in the last year.
Let's take Netflix, because Netflix is a good example. I think you said something along these lines that you and your wife, the one thing you're not going to cancel is Netflix, right?
Yep, she will not let me.
Why is that?
Well, she enjoys the content the most. I would imagine it's something she's
just
used
one
to.
Piece of content?
My wife is
just overwhelmed.
No, she likes multiple shows on there. But my wife almost like gets overwhelmed sometimes with all the streaming services we have. She goes, "Why do we have all these?" And like, so like, I think she's just boom right to the wants Netflix, likes Netflix. And I think they got her brand loyalty. I think she's Netflix. For me, I like stuff on Amazon Prime. I like stuff on Paramount. I like stuff on Discovery Plus. I mean, they just had the Restaurant Rivals.
You subscribe to Discovery Plus? I think we've touched on this before, actually.
Yeah.
What the hell do you watch on Discovery Plus? I think you might. This is rare. We've discovered a Discovery Plus subscriber here. Everybody,
because I love the content. Like, so
what's the content?
I mean,
you watch.
Okay, you want to know? I'll tell you the content. First off, there's multiple different networks that provide content on there. You got your HGTV, right? So your restoration shows, fixing houses, house hunters, all that. Then you got Food Network and the Cooking Channel. So if you like your cooking challenges or going to restaurants, all that. You get the Magnolia. You get the Magnolia Network, which to me is my favorite for what I like. Like, there's this show about this woman. She just goes and fixes people's gardens and like helps them like grow fruits and vegetables and whatnot. There's a show where the guy takes like old, like either like a train, part of a train or like an old grain mill or whatever. And he like turns them into like cabins and Airbnbs. And I don't know. I enjoy that type of product. And like I said, they just had a John Taffer versus Robert Irvine Restaurant Rivals show, which I love the content.
Look at David Zaslav smile at you as you say all these things. He's loving hearing this. The point I'm trying to make here is that people do cancel Netflix, but many people don't cancel Netflix because of the vast content and the vast selection of content that is hit content that is popular that people watch. So it's not just one or two shows that are popular on Netflix. It's just a preponderance of stuff that's popular.
And it should be noted that Netflix is the only streaming service that has consecutively increased its price almost every year.
Mm-hmm. Price elasticity, and they can probably go further, but carefully. I guess. So when I raise this point, hey, look, maybe AEW will try to make a deal with HBO Max someday soon. Maybe they are currently, but then again, you've got David Zaslav, who's eventually, or I don't know if he is now in some way, going to be overseeing everything in the Warner Media space, including HBO Max. He's saying we're going to have cost discipline. We're not going to maybe we're not going to allocate a lot of funding to buy the rights to new content for HBO Max, such as possibly AEW. So maybe there's not going to be money available for HBO to deal out like that. Maybe. And I had Gavin Bridge respond. Gavin Bridge from Variety, who writes about WE and AEW sometimes, point out that that this is a view that's being criticized, and maybe Discovery will have a big shakeup in streaming in the future because maybe this strategy isn't going to work out for them. Something to watch in the future. Anyway.
All right. Yeah. So we'll move on here.
Did you listen to the Tony Khan media call?
I did. I did listen to the Tony Khan media call. Nothing really surprised me. He did get defensive on one question that was asked about Cody Rhodes the first time Cody Rhodes not part of a pay-per-view, and he pointed out that Cody Rhodes was not on a couple pay-per-views, including the one that was the highest grossing. So that was the only, I think, but other than that, he was very I think it was a general good conference call. He broke a little news with like the RJ City Road to Revolution stuff, and we talked about being in California and the West Coast and all that, and which is something you also discussed with Chris Harrington about like the expansion into the West Coast and whatnot. But I mean, as far as the media call, I don't think it was super newsworthy, but that's kind of my takeaways from it.
Okay. I asked him a question about the African-American audience, which is a lower percentage for AEW than it is for WB. So let's listen to that clip, and then we'll talk about what the data is as far as we know.
Hey, Brandon. What's up, man? Thank you. Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah, great to talk with you. So the Nielsen TV ratings data that I've seen shows that while AEW's African-American audience is pretty much on par with that of TV generally, that percentage of the audience is considerably lower than, say, WWE's African-American audience. So I was wondering, is that something you feel you can change? And if so, what has AEW been doing lately to address that?
That is a tremendous question, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Muted.
I have noticed that. I study the patterns very closely, and it's something I'm cognizant of, and an audience that we really do want to grow, and it's very important to us. Is not just growing that audience. I think diversity is very important to the company for a number of reasons, but absolutely expanding our viewership. We think that is something that will help us, and that's why you see so much great diverse talent on the show, and there's been better representation, I think, than ever before. Diversity among the champions and new stars coming in. So I think when you look at who's been coming into the company and the profile of free agents we continue to sign, and the huge push that Jade Cargill is getting, and a lot of the stars who have been getting pushed up the card and getting put in big spots, I think that is consistent with trying to grow that audience.
So there you go. I know that's something that was a big talking point after the Big Swole controversy, where she was critical of diversity in AEW, and Tony Khan on New Year's Eve tweeted in response saying she was released. We let her contract expire because she wasn't a good wrestler. And then we had a long discussion about that a day or two later. So AEW's audience is, as I said in the clip there, it's on par with TV generally, and that's what we have on the screen here. Especially if you look at the bar that says cable primetime homes / persons using television, which is 69% white, 14% black, 13% Hispanic, and then 5% other races. If you compare that to, now this is just looking at July 1st to September 12th. This is the most recent data that I have. I'm going to try to update this data soon. AEW Dynamite, again, TV generally, maybe 69% white. AEW Dynamite in that period, July 1st to September 12th, 68% white, 16% black, 11% Hispanic, 5% other races. So again, roughly on par with cable prime time TV viewership. A little bit more white, somewhat more white than the universe generally. But if we look at who's actually watching TV, for some reason, white people watch more TV, I guess, at least in this breakdown. But if you look at WWE, WWE's audience is 20 for SmackDown in that period, it's 26% black. For Raw, 23% black. So that tells me that maybe the total available market, the total population of wrestling fans we could capture AEW is disproportionately African Americans relative to the population generally, and AEW has not yet captured that audience to the level that WWE has, and maybe that they could. So no news in his response, but that was his that was Tony Khan saying what he's doing to address that, including pushing Jade Cargill, who is, I think, the only name that he specified in that response, right? But you can think of other people they signed, Keith Lee. Anybody else come to mind there?
I mean, Powerhouse Hobbs, as we're seeing being featured in this Revolution ladder match, which I think is going to be a huge star for them, for sure.
Yeah. So there's that. I talked with.
Yeah. So I was going to say you spoke with Chris Harrington on Tuesday, and you brought up Road to the Top, which was something we kind of want to know more info on. Like, whose property was it?
Yeah. So when I talked to Mookie in September, right here in Wrestlenomics headquarters, the answer is I'm confused, and I'm still confused after talking with him. It's not really clear to me. I thought in September, after our discussion, that Roads to the Top was an AEW show, just like, WWE. It's Total Divas and Ms. and Mrs. and Total Bellas. Those are and were WWE shows that WWE benefited from financially, directly, for those shows. And I guess if I look at the filings, they probably tell me that WWE paid for the production. What Chris was telling me on Tuesday is that Warner Media paid for the production. He reiterated that Tony Khan is an executive producer. So is that Tony Khan benefiting personally from this show, or is it some other entity wholly owned by Tony Khan that was benefiting from Roads to the Top, or was this something that was going into the finances of AEW? Not totally clear to me. Anyway, there's a big question about what the future of this show will be. It's probably not going to continue, especially if Cody Rhodes ends up somewhere else. Much reporting and speculation about whether Cody will go to WWE now. Who knows? Maybe could he go back to AEW? Maybe if he comes back to AEW, maybe this show could continue. But if he doesn't, he probably won't continue. Will be replaced by something. I think I asked Mookie. I didn't get a clear answer though.
All right. We will move on to some, but we got another super chat. We'll address all those super chats, I think, towards the end of the show. We'll kind of fire them off there. We do want to discuss WrestleMania ticket sales. This is from WrestleTix here. Night 1 as of right now on April 2nd, 56,076. Night 2, 55,781. We are 4 weeks out. And we haven't had the announcement of a Stone Cold match that's been rumored. We haven't had the announcement.
They've already surpassed 100,000. They've already broken the record.
Yeah.
They've broken the record. 101,763, right? This, of course, is 2 nights, though. Just to reiterate what we said last week, I reported it for the 2016 WrestleMania in the same venue, 80,709 in the building. That's spectators, not including ushers and ticket takers and things of that nature, as has been said on a conference call, noting that it wasn't 100,000 paid. But that's the number, 80,700. 80,709, according to the Arlington Police, who apparently knew that number for safety reasons. So that's probably the capacity for each day. Maybe it's even a little bit bigger than that. Was WrestleMania in 2016 sold out? Probably close, right? But right now, based on that assumption that that's the capacity for each day, they're at about 69% capacity, which is up from the 66% that they were at last week. Maybe we'll continue to track this, at least to the extent that WrestleTix tracks it next week as well. An update on Raw and SmackDown. Still both under 10,000 tickets for the Raw and the SmackDown adjoining WrestleMania weekend. 9,737 for SmackDown, which is also the Hall of Fame ceremony. Only 8,694. Both of these at our American Airlines Arena, which even with a massive WWE stage is still going to, it's got to be over 10,000 seats. The Raw after WrestleMania is not sold out still. Over 1,000 tickets, maybe as much as 2,000 tickets, at least currently on sale that are not sold. Revolution tonight is sold out. If I assume that 95% of the Revolution tickets are paid tickets, and if I assume that the average ticket price is $75, we discussed $80 possibly being the average ticket price. Based on the secondary sales, but based on what Dave Meltzer said about the secondary sales, but considering that may have been, I don't know, maybe that was a selection of less expensive tickets, or at least let's err on the conservative side here and let's go 75 rather than 80. We could get to $585,000 for a live gate. I bet they're going to spend more than $585,000 to produce this event, which highlights to me this is a media business, not a live event business. But they will make millions in pay-per-view. Let's just because I said pay-per-view, let's jump to the previous ticket sales and pay-per-view before I talk about Double or Nothing. Every pay-per-view for AEW, according to what I believe, and I think Tony might have even said it on Wednesday. Every AEW pay-per-view of a given name, there's 4 pay-per-views, right? Double or Nothing, All Out, Full Gear, Revolution. Each one of those pay-per-views has had more pay-per-view buys than the pay-per-view of the same name in the prior year. So year over year, all of their pay-per-views have been higher than the pay-per-view of the prior year. So what is the benchmark for Revolution tonight? Last year's Revolution, with the unsuccessful explosion, 135,000 pay-per-view buys. 135,000. Full Gear did 145. All Out did 205 with the first match of CM Punk in 7 years. So that's what they will have to do, 135 or better, to keep that streak up. Considering Full Gear was so much more bought than the Full Gear of the prior year, it was 145 up from 85. So almost doubling the Full Gear of the prior year. And we're still in this first 12 months of CM Punk and Bryan Danielson months here. I think it's a safe bet that they'll do better than the Revolution of last year, which was at that point was their most bought pay-per-view ever, 135,000. Again, I hope media asks Tony Khan in the post-Revolution scrum if he can tell the media anything about the state and the impression of pay-per-view sales at that point, because they will have some early indications about what the pay-per-view sales are. I know it takes a long time for pay-per-view sales to become final because all the traditional carriers take so long to reconcile and finalize everything, but they will have some impression of how well the pay-per-view did. So I hope someone asks. Okay. Double or Nothing. Why don't you tell us what Tony Khan tweeted 2 days ago?
Yep, Tony Khan tweeted, "It's Friday. You know what that means. #AW Rampage. Live tonight on TNT Drama on the Road to Revolution is Sunday. And tonight we're celebrating a milestone because today, Double or Nothing first day sales just gave us our first ever $1 million gate. Let's celebrate tonight at Rampage."
So that means that the Grand Slam event did not reach $1 million. And that tells us, let's see here. So WrestleTix came out with this estimate of the ticket map. We can look at the times here. So Tony tweeted that at 4:31. WrestleTix tweeted this map at 8:55 a.m. So I don't know if this was on Patreon first, but if we assume that roughly, as WrestleTix reports here, 12,276 tickets were distributed roughly at the point that it crossed $1 million. If we take 1 million and divide that by 12,276, we get an average ticket price of $81.46. So that gives us an idea of what's the average ticket price for an AEW pay-per-view, at least in this market. Maybe, I mean, there's only 4 of them. Maybe it changes a little bit in other markets, but that's useful for estimating AEW pay-per-view events, live gates in the future. I don't know if that's interesting to anyone but me, but that's good to know. Anyway, moving on.
All right, moving on. Go over some Google search and some Google Trends data.
Google Trends. WWE is still massively above anybody else in the wrestling universe when it comes to Google web search, which I think is an impression of mind share and how much people are thinking about a certain brand, person, entity, what have you. WWE is still well above AEW in this index. We put in the recently completed month of February, WWE measured at a 22. That's not an absolute unit of anything. It's 22% of their all-time peak is what that is for a month. 22, whereas comparatively AEW was a 3.5. So what's 22 divided by 3.5? That's roughly 7 times, right? 22 divided by 3.5 is 6.3 times. So more than 6 times worldwide. Think about it. Everybody on their phones, at their keyboards, they're Googling things. For every one AEW-related search, there are 6 WWE searches. So take that, W hater. But if you look at, I think what's really interesting is to look at the year-over-year comparisons here. And I think this, I might have a data bias here in that, God, the data guy is so into data that he's trying to extract meaning from data. So feel free to challenge me here, anybody. But I think it's remarkable. Nothing tells me as much of a story about the momentum of these companies. And we've got, I don't know how many companies here. AEW, New Japan, Impact, Ring of Honor, Stardom, Noah, Dragon Gate, DDT, CMLL, AAA, MLW, NWA, All Japan Pro Wrestling, Big Japan, Game Changer Wrestling, and PWG are the selection of promotions that I've put here. And what I've done is a monthly year-over-year comparison. So take February and compare it to the February of last year, and do that same thing for every month. You're comparing it to the same month of the prior year. And now we have this through February, since February just ended. And WWE is down worldwide in February. They were up, though, worldwide in January. We're not looking at U.S. I think it's a little bit less favorable for WWE when we look at the U.S. Geography. But worldwide, they were up in January for that Royal Rumble month. Better than the pandemic Thunderdome January of 2021. AEW is most, so I've conditionally formatted this for people who might be watching on YouTube, and I think it really, again, I think it really tells you about who has momentum. And I have some conclusions about this, but what conclusions would you draw from this, Chris Gullo? And we'll see if we have similar conclusions. What promotions have strong momentum right now, would you say, and what promotions have weak momentum?
I would say AEW, just based on the
of course you would think that.
how much it's gone up. I would say Stardom.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like Noah's been consistently
they're trying to work against that, but yes.
Dragon Gate to a certain perspective. I mean, honestly, like kind of across the board, DDT, CML have seen upticks consistent last few months. MLW, and Game Changer Wrestling and PWG.
Who's got kind of the strongest streak with maybe a few exceptions, but who's got like the strongest streak of green here? mean, they've got a lot of momentum in Google web search.
Ooh, it looks like Stardom.
Yeah. Stardom, not among, the top 5 companies that are searched for globally, but every month, with the exception of May 2021, because it's being compared to the May of 2020 when Hana Kimura passed away and web search was enormous related to Stardom. With that exception, every month has been a year-over-year positive difference since May 2019. Now, who has negative momentum, would you say?
Looking at it, negative momentum. I mean, WWE had the uptick in January, as you noted, but I mean, it's been mostly in the red. Big Japan Wrestling has been mostly in the red.
Mm-hmm.
Impact's been spotty, but I would say Big Japan definitely has a lot of red. And honestly, AAA had a lot of red for a while, but it looks like it's on a turn.
Yeah. And if we look at this, that what we were just looking there was from 2019 to the present. And now I've got this Google web search, Google Trends, which is where this data comes from, directly from Google, which anybody can go to trends.google.com and check this out. But we have this going all the way back to 2004. So then I did an updated year-over-year comparisons. And what I think we see from this, and I wrote about this in the annual Wrestlenomics Pro Wrestling Industry Report, not this year, but the year before that, I believe the 2020 report, if not that, the 2019 report, about how I do think, again, this maybe is just, I'm projecting my data bias and wanting to derive meaning from this, but I do believe this coincides with business activity when you read it with the right caveats, because it's not always Google web search increasing because of good news. It might be the passing of Hana Kimura or the Benoit family killings that increases web search for bad reasons. But in a lot of cases, and generally, I think it does tell you something about the business momentum that these companies are prone to have. And what we see here is, take like, I think most reasonable people would agree that New Japan went through a really hot period beginning in the early 2010s, concluding in the late 2010s. And that's what we see is a streak of positive year-over-year comparisons. 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, and it slows down in 2019 when AEW launches. But that reflects pretty neatly to me the boom period, if you will. Maybe not a massive boom period, but a pretty good period for New Japan business, where every year their web search globally was up from the year prior, from 2011 to 2018. And you look back at Impact 2005 to 2010, sort of tells you the story about how Impact gained momentum and recognition from 2005 until they tried to go head-to-head with WWE in the very brief Monday Night Wars, and then negative comparisons all the way down as Impact lost its TV deal on Spike with Viacom at the time, and now they're in a little bit better of a place with access than they were in the depths of the Pursuit channel and things like that. WB. In 2005, they're up. In 2006, they're up. In 2007, they're up. 2007 is the year that the Benoit killings happen. I think this coincides, 2005, 6, 7, with sort of this strengthening of WrestleMania, at least as a brand, as becoming this thing that I don't think they take into a stadium until 2007 for the Trump WrestleMania, but I think this coincides with, I don't know, it coincides with guess who? Guess what? Guess what? It also coincides with the rise of
John Cena.
A new star. And then what we see is right after 2007, so maybe the Benoit family tragedy contributes to this. As we see from 2008 to 2013, negative differences in every year. Not huge negative differences, but negative differences. Until 2014. And what happens in 2014?
Roman Reigns, and I think the Shield, right?
acknowledge him. Roman Reigns. I think a lot of what has to do with this is the emergence of new stars in the Shield. That definitely helps, and maybe it's an underrated part of this. But I think the W Network, making pay-per-views, heightening the reach of pay-per-views is what you would say. Is what one would say. So many more people. I mean, this is my experience, and maybe I'm projecting my personal experience here. I don't know if you had a similar experience, Gullo, but I started to watch pay-per-views where I definitely was not watching them that much at the time. So 2014, 15, and 16, web search is up year over year until 2017, after which it has been down by about 20% every year through 2021. And what we're looking at, for people watching on YouTube, what we're looking at with the 2022 row, I would take with a grain of salt because we're only partly through that year, obviously, as anyone with a calendar knows. So what's been happening since 2007? I'm sorry, 2017. Down 20%, down 21%, down 19%, down 23%, down 20%. What's going on here?
I mean, there's not another new megastar. Let's just say that. We've had Roman Reigns, but if we established a new megastar in that time period, we have not.
Yeah. Why not? What are they? They don't want to create stars. Right?
It's the brand. The brand is the star.
The brand is the draw. And they specifically don't want to create stars. Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, I will say, it might be something that they're not outright saying, but probably in the back of their heads, no one person is bigger than a company. You remember when one person has been bigger than the company, it's put them in bad positions. Like Hogan leaving and Austin not showing up in 2002, and when
I think that they do want to create stars, and they kind of tried with Drew. I think Roman Reigns is being elevated more than ever lately. I think there are certain risks to having stars be really big stars, and then they can go away, whether it's The Rock or John Cena now. But why not create a steady flow of stars so you can continue to strengthen your consumer metrics, which can continue to strengthen the argument that you can make to business partners if that's all you care about, or that's the main thing that you care about, because that's the main area that you're getting your revenue from. You can make great arguments to business partners if your consumer metrics are super strong. But they haven't. I don't know why though, because Vince is doing a great job and he listens to the people. So maybe it's the fans' fault, and if it's not the fans' fault, maybe it's the talent's fault. Right? Gullo is very distracted.
I am just kind of all over the place. Like, we haven't had any controversial comments though in a while. Okay. But I want to make sure I don't lose track of the super chats.
Okay. Anyway,
I'm here.
Okay. YouTube this week, the most watched clip on YouTube. I'm having some issues with my script this morning, but as of 3 a.m. last night, the most watched clip on YouTube through 24 hours was Ronda Rousey and Sonya Deville in a match that they had on SmackDown with more than 1.1 million YouTube views, 1.2 million as of 3 a.m. last night. Damian Priest turning heel and Edge turning heel in successive segments on Raw are number 2 and number 3. So that's what we have. Not until the Death Triangle summons Eric Redbeard from Rampage do we get an AEW clip. So there's that. I continue to, on Live TV Ratings Talk, sort of compare YouTube clips to quarter hours and seeing some corroboration there. So maybe we're on our way to finding out who's a draw. But tell us about the deal that WWE announced with A&E this week.
Yeah. So today announced a multi-year expansion of the successful programming partnership with the commissioning of more than 130 new hours of premium WWE-themed series and specials to air exclusively on A&E platforms to be distributed worldwide by A&E networks. The multi-platform partnership includes 35 new episodes of the genre-defining Emmy Award-winning franchise Biography, featuring documentaries on legends of WWE. Last year's Biography WWE Legends episodes drove Biography to become A&E's most watched series in 2021. WWE is also beginning production on 24 new episodes of the original series, WWE's Most Wanted Treasures, which will air over multiple seasons. The first season of WWE's Most Wanted Treasures wins A&E's Most Watched New Series of the Year. A&E also has ordered 40 hours of the new series WWE Rivals, which is a working title. WWE Rivals will chronicle the little-known stories behind the biggest clashes in WWE history. The episodes will include revelatory insights from those who were part of the rivalries that often extended beyond the ring and cameras. Additional hours of original programming are currently in development as well. That rivalry series was something we kind of did see on the network. They did like something like that. So it's funny, this Most Wanted Treasures news came out, and AJ Francis did say that he was signed on for multiple seasons. Doesn't think they'll call him, but he said he was signed on for multiple seasons of Most Wanted Treasures.
Okay.
To host it.
Yeah. Poor Top Dollar. So this is it all makes sense, right? Like they did what was probably a 1-year deal, 1-season deal last year. The biography episodes performed pretty well in terms of ratings. Most Hidden Treasures did fine, I think. So this is being renewed, and this looks like they said it was. This press release says it is a multi-year deal. So this is a deeper commitment. And this just explains why you've seen less original content on the W Network, because I can certainly imagine Nick Khan making the argument, why are we putting things out onto the network when what are we really getting from partners like Peacock? What are they really paying for? They're paying for the backlog of the library, and they're paying for the premium live events that happen monthly. And are we really drawing? Are we really controlling churn or attracting subscriptions by producing these documentary biography type pieces or things like Rivals? Maybe not. And I bet that's why we haven't seen the Lex Luger documentary, the Vlad the Superfan documentary. I bet those will be things that are episodes for these A&E series. So it's this will be appearing most likely in the other media segment as revenue. We won't have any idea how much revenue exactly they're getting from this, but this is probably multiple millions per year for WWE because of these deals. And again, it's not just more biographies. It's not just more Most Wanted Treasures. It's W Rivals as well as they say, as you mentioned in this press release, additional hours are also currently in development. So more content over more years. I'm sure that means more revenue for WWE. So there's that. We can go to Super Chats now.
Yes. All right. We'll start with Christian Wagner, our first Super Chat. Should AEW hire their own Nick Khan to be profitable?
I have a response for that. I bet that I guess they could hire an agent. Now look, they do have activist artist management that helps them to some extent get the US TV deal that they have, which is a talent agency. I believe Tony Khan was involved in starting that talent agency, I want to say. But is Chris Harrington the Nick Khan of AEW? I don't know. I at least in terms of trying to spend leanly and wisely, I think but that's probably not what's being gotten at in that question there. In terms of making a lot of media deals, yeah, it would be helpful to have somebody who has a lot of experience making as big media deals as possible. And at least domestically, internationally, because what we're seeing is WWE. Oh wow, we're seeing super chats on the screen here. Thank you for that. What we're seeing is WWE making a lot of what I would call these incremental deals, whether it's the lottery tickets that come to mind, a new trading card deal. I think the performance of this 2K video game is very much a big deal. It better be successful, or WWE is probably going to try to make a deal, maybe with my guess would be EA Sports, we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I think it would be in their interest. Now, how much money would they have to pay for more involvement from, let's say, a talent agency or from an awesome talent agency executive of the likes of Nick Khan, if there even are comparable executives available in the world? How much is Nick Khan getting paid? Millions and millions of dollars. He's getting a $5 million bonus, and coming up this spring, we'll get a clear idea of just how much he was compensated, because the proxy statement will come out. But yeah, I think I don't think we're going to see AEW spend a lot of money beyond what they currently spend on until they make a new TV deal. Everybody's got all these ideas, and they're probably a lot of good ideas about things that AEW should do in terms of a business. But I don't think they're going to delve deeper into risk beyond they will continue to sign talent to some extent. They're not going to delve deeper into a financial risk until they get a TV rights deal that is a significant improvement over the one, which is pretty good, that they have now, $44 million a year. But they're in a good position if all things stay roughly the way that they are now. A couple of years from now, they stand a good chance to maybe triple, maybe quadruple the value of their US TV rights deal currently.
All right, RT Machine with our next super chat. What do you guys think about Logan Paul being in WWE? Personally, I hate it. I can comment on this. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a typical WrestleMania move. I
would not know who Logan Paul was unless
Logan Paul is a very famous YouTuber.
I gather that. Yeah.
Yeah, he has, I think it was something like he has like 20 something million subscribers on YouTube. Like, the guy's a big deal. Like, so for them, it's cross marketing. It's what they love. It's somebody outside the world of wrestling bringing their fan base in. So, I mean, whether it's going to be a good match or not, I don't know. I mean, maybe Bad Bunny has set the precedent of people taking it seriously, celebrities taking it seriously and trying to actually go out there and be great, but we'll see what happens.
It's sort of WWE becoming, and what's his name? Jackass guy is going to be on the show. Johnny Knoxville. It's going to wrestle Sami Zayn, right? It's sort of becoming a celebrity boxing pay-per-view, which is right in line with what Vince seems to like. Larger than life spectacle of all these celebrities, and really WrestleMania has been that since day one. I mean, the first WrestleMania had all these celebrities at it, right? Yeah, it wouldn't be as concerning if they were developing stars of their own who would appear year round, more so. But it's not something as a 35-year-old that, how old am I? No, 36-year-old that I care about.
Yeah. I mean, I'm personally not like, oh, I got to see this match, but I get why they did it. And I would do it too if I were them. The business move, to be honest with you. Guardian of Chaos asks us, Brandon and Chris, off topic, but how do today's weekly TV ratings stack up against the Monday Night Wars programs overall? And they Guardian said, appreciate what you do.
The viewership of today versus the viewership of Raw and Nitro back in the day.
Yeah.
The Monday Night Wars viewership was way higher. Way higher. I don't know. I'm not going to easily be able to bring up Nitro, but we do have Raw here that we can look at real quick. This is from the Wrestlenomics Viewership Spreadsheet, which patrons can get access to at patreon.com/Wrestlenomics. Do we have a chart here? So, let's see. You know what? In fact, I do have Raw by the hour that will give us even more comparable numbers. So, in, let's say, 1998, right? Here are some weeks from 1998 where they were doing 5.5 million viewers, 4.5 million viewers. You know, they were doing 4 to 5 million viewers, 6 million viewers going into 1999, 7 million viewers in 1999, 8 million viewers they did this week in May, 8 million viewers, 7, 6, 5 million viewers. Again, what's Raw doing today?
I mean, Raw's doing 1.6?
1.7, 1.8 million viewers.
Yeah.
This is in a very different TV environment. So this is not, that comparison is not a sufficient indictment of Raw's TV ratings. It's a very different TV environment, and I don't think that alone is a great argument for look at how their popularity has fallen. It's, you know, it was a time where the viewership was much younger. Younger people watched TV a lot more often, and there wasn't as much entertainment or as much entertainment competition. That said, even if all other things were equal, Raw's viewership would be down significantly from this. If technology stopped developing and entertainment competition stopped developing in the year 2000, Raw's viewership would still be substantially lower than 6 million viewers. But it would be higher than 1.7 million viewers for sure. Yes.
All right. Our last as of right now, a super chat comes from Chicken Pom Pom. Long-time listener, first-time caller. TKT's huge announcement is good for the industry, fans, and wrestlers.
Like, I'm imagining you're like, are you holding 2 chickens? And anyway.
So it said TKT's huge announcement is good for the industry, fans, and wrestlers. What direction do you think he could go with Ring of Honor that would fulfill that comment? I kind of touched on a little earlier. I think first off, if it is a developmental territory, that gives obviously more opportunities for professional wrestlers. I think the fans continue to have more content that they can consume. And I mean, as an industry whole, it's creating more jobs.
There's just not enough content, especially wrestling content. Not enough of it to consume these days. I just can't find enough. Just starving for wrestling content. Right? That's an issue.
No, just give us more.
No, but you know, I don't think you have to expect fans or most viewers, audience members, fans to consume all of your content. I mean, vast majority, very few people relative to the Dynamite audience are consuming Dark, right? But anyway, the core of the question is how can Tony Khan live up to basically what he's kind of promising here with Ring of Honor? I don't know, making it a strong developmental brand, I guess. The thing is, like, is there really a space for a strong developmental brand when your main brand is actually satisfying your core audience? I mean, that's what I believe. Like, and NXT's success in 2014 to 2019 or so, or 2018, whatever, was what it was, and was as successful as it was because the main roster was not satisfying the core audience. It was alienating the core audience, and that audience, not all of whom were alienated. I know you loved it, but a lot of people didn't, and a lot of people were, relieved and loved NXT because of it. I don't think the core AEW audience feels that way about the current AEW product that's on Dynamite and Rampage and the pay-per-views. But maybe there's still some way to get something out of it. I mean, the Ring of Honor brand has a lot of value to AEW, probably more so than any other entity in the world. W would not do anything with it other than do something with the library and maybe put it on the network. So, yeah.
By the way, those reports that came out that they were interested in selling, or they were interested in buying Ring of Honor, and I believe they made an offer or whatever. That's where you think the angle would have been, right? Just a library.
I think so, because there were rumors that they were going to do something with Evolve, and that never came to fruition. Certainly, this present day version of WWE, where Vince has sort of reasserted his no wrestling but me philosophy. They're not gonna use somebody else's existing brand. I mean, they did with ECW, and that was a different time when wrestling was different, and I think Vince had more respect for his wrestling peers. ECW was this brand that he realized was successful, and what helps that too, I know, is that the One Night Stand pay-per-view did really well on pay-per-view, and it outperformed a lot of their B pay-per-views at the time. So there was that sort of certificate of credibility to put on it. And, if WWE bought Ring of Honor and did a Ring of Honor pay-per-view, it would not be a big deal, I don't think. And I think the Ring of Honor brand had really been drained over the last couple of years. It was I think Ring of Honor and to an extent New Japan, they passed by a window in about 2018 or so that that AEW later jumped through, and they had AEW is taking the opportunity that if New Japan or Ring of Honor had the personnel and the vision and the financial requirements, they could have made happen, and the connections to just what Tony had with Kevin Riley, I believe is his name.
All right, we did get 2 more super chats.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Tim B, do we have channel racial makeup data? I would think a show on BET would skew much differently racially than a show on HGTV. WWE shows skew different.
Yeah, I wish I had a Nielsen subscription, but unfortunately it would cost us tens of thousands of dollars. So the data that I do get is secondhand from Nielsen, so it's quite a bit more limited. But I'm sure that's correct, that networks like the BET network skew with African Americans. But I haven't seen particular channel breakdowns like that. But yeah, it's something that I would be interested to see.
RT Machine, would you guys like to see the Jackass crew do a pro wrestling match on their next movie? I would personally. I don't know if they're going to do another Jackass movie after this. But I mean, if it's something for the movie, where they're getting bumped by somebody, that would probably be entertaining.
No, I got my fill of Jackass in 1999 or so I'm good. I'm all set.
All right, I think that is going to wrap us up here.
It's a lot of super chats, so we really appreciate that.
Yeah, really. Thank you. Seriously, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
A few more, and I'll be able to afford a Nielsen subscription, maybe.
All right, so with that, kind of go to the plugs, I believe.
Okay. You can sign up to the Patreon, patreon.com/Wrestlenomics. Please hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, share this video, share the podcast, give us a good review if you think it's good. If you think Gullo's a W hater, I apologize for him. Yeah, you can get my TV ratings reports, which are coming out nearly every day, on the Patreon. I do Thursday live TV ratings talk at 5:30. I did it on Friday because the ratings were delayed this week. We got merch at store.postwrestling.com. You can play the Wrestlenomics ratings game in the Post Wrestling Discord in the Wrestlenomics channel. And what do you have?
So podcast side of things, Rediscovering Indies. If you haven't caught it yet, catch part 1 of our Burt Prentice deep dive, where we talk about the promotion career of Burt Prentice. And just from 91 to 94, he ran like 6 promotions. So it's a lot of fun. And we're just going to get into the heart of Ozark and Music City Wrestling and all that. And the next part, look out for that later this month. You can catch me ring announcing this Saturday night at Excite Wrestling in the Binghamton area, Johnson City, Oakdale Mall. Colby Carino versus Tommy Dreamer's on the card, so I'm pretty excited.
It's a cage
for
match.
that.
I heard there's a cage match on that show.
Yes, correct? I don't think it's that match though.
No, it's not.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, there's a pretty stacked show, and those of you that are going to be in Dallas, I now am going to be appearing on 3 pro wrestling shows.
3.
There's so just added a show on Saturday.
Any additional bookings that you've picked up because of this podcast?
I'm not sure, but I do know the show I'm excited for is at Turning Point Brewery. It's going to be a free show, 2:00 on Saturday, and I'm going to get to ring announce Rodney Mack, and I'm actually excited about that. I was a big Rodney Mack fan back in the day. So.
Fantastic. Okay, thanks to everybody for watching and listening. I will see you on Thursday. We'll see you back here Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern.